Hello everyone, I'm Xin from Japan. The evaluation plan of the VoicePrivacy challenge this year described how we can ask human evaluators to judge the performance of the anonymization system. Although organizing this kind of subjective evaluation was more challenging this year, we managed to do it. And in this presentation, I'm going to briefly explain how we organize the evaluation and what kind of results we obtained. In the evaluation plan, we first described objective evaluation matrix. One is the word error rate given by the speech recognition system. Another one is the equal error rate given by the speaker verification system. While the word error rate measures whether the anonymized speech is still intelligible or not, the SVER can tell us whether the anonymized speech carries the identity of the original speaker. Subjective evaluation can be done in a similar way, but we're going to use human evaluators to replace the ASR and the ASV systems. First, we can ask the human evaluators to listen to the anonymized speech, and then we can ask them to evaluate how intelligible the speech is. We can also ask them to evaluate whether the input speech contains artifact or degradation. So these two questions correspond to the speech intelligibility and the naturalness in the subjective evaluation. Furthermore, we can also ask the human evaluators to compare the anonymized speech with the enrollment data from the target speaker. So the human evaluator can tell whether the anonymized speech still sounds like being altered by the same speaker. So this corresponds to the speaker verifiability, which is defined in our evaluation plan. In the evaluation plan, we also mentioned another subjective metric called speaker linkability. So this will be explained by my colleagues in the next presentation. Here, I'm going to talk about the naturalness, intelligibility, and verifiability. Of course, organizing the subjective evaluation is more complicated than a general idea shown in the previous slide. This picture here shows the actual settings of the subjective evaluation. So in one evaluation test page, the listener will hear one randomly selected sample. So this sample can be the original speech from the target speaker, the anonymized speech from the target speaker, or the original or the anonymized speech from the non-target speaker. The listener will judge the naturalness, intelligibility, and the speaker similarity of this input trial. When evaluating the speaker similarity, we also provide enrollment data from the original from the target speaker. During the test, the listener can play the sound as many times as he or she prefers. For all the three metrics, we ask the evaluator to assign a score ranging from 1 to 10. For example, for the naturalness, a higher score indicates better naturalness. Of course, we know that the perceived naturalness depends on the listener. Therefore, after we collected all the subjective evaluation scores, we remove the listener-dependent variation and normalize the score to be a value between 0 to 1. So this is a strategy used in the speech synthesis community, and you can find more details from the reference paper. We started the listening test at the beginning of August. The number of evaluated trials is more than 16,000, as you can see from this picture. We collected the trials so that they cover all the test speakers and all the anonymization system. We also made sure that the four types of trials are balanced in number. In total, there were 47 native English speakers conducted the evaluation. So each listener evaluated at least 36 trials, and many of them actually evaluated 360 trials. So this is the maximum number of trials that can be evaluated by a single listener. Let's look at the evaluation results. Here I use the violin plot to show the naturalness scores. This violin plot is very similar to the box plot, but the shape of the violin can further show the score distribution. On the left-hand side, you can see the scores of the unanonymized speech from the target and non-target speakers. since both of them are unanonymized, so their naturalness scores are quite high. For the anonymization system, we merge the scores of the anonymized speech from the target and the non-target speakers. So in fact, they have similar naturalness scores if we decompose these two types of anonymized speech. Anyway, from the results we can see the anonymized speech generally has a lower score than the natural speech. Some of the systems, such as I1, seems to be better than other systems, but none of them is as natural as the unanonymized speech. Results on the intelligibility are quite similar to those on the naturalness, as you can see from this figure. Here, I further ordered the system based on the utilized anonymization methods. The blue box indicates the system using the X-vector-based model, while the red box indicates those using the signal processing methods. The results on speaker similarity are, however, different. Here, we must decompose the scores of the anonymized speech from the target and the non-target speakers. Of course, we mainly focus on how well the targeted speaker speech is anonymized, so which is shown in the figure above. A lower score in this case indicates a better privacy protection. On the left-hand side, the targeted speaker speech trials obtained higher similarity scores, while those from the non-targeted speakers are lower. So these results are expected. For the anonymization system, we can see all of them successfully decrease the speaker similarity, which means all the anonymized speech sounds different from the original speaker. Privacy can be protected if we heavily distort the input speech data, but this is not a good solution. To investigate whether this is the case for the challenge this year, we plot the median scores of the naturalness and the similarity in this scatter plot. An ideal speech anonymization system should generate a speech that sounds like a different speaker while maintaining the high naturalness of the input speech, so it should be close to the right bottom color. However, we can see all the system, while they can decrease the speaker similarity or hide the speaker identity quite well, but they introduced degradation on the naturalness of the anonymized speech. A system K1 seems to suffer more from the degradation in naturalness, even though it is well done to decrease the speaker similarity. Similar to the naturalness, anonymization hurts the intelligibility of the anonymized speech. These are the results indicated by this figure. Here I'd like to play some samples.
We did what we had to do. 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 We did what we had to do.
We did what we had to do.
I hope these samples can tell you how the anonymized speech sounds like. If you noticed, some of the system indeed changed the pronunciation of some of the words. In addition to the scatter and the violin plots, we also analyze the scores using standard tools, like the DET curve and the EER. Since we know the score distribution, we can compute the EER and the DET curves in a similar way to the objective evaluation. This also allows us to compare the subjective and the objective results. Due to the limited time, I cannot explain the full details here, but we observed a high correlation between the subjective and objective evaluation scores. You can find the details in the appendix. I will quickly summarize what we have learned from the subjective evaluation. The results given by the native English listeners tells us that all the anonymization system can hide the speaker identity quite well, but all of them degrades the intelligibility and the naturalness of the anonymized speech. there was either artifact or distortion in the anonymized speech, and some of them even degrade the intelligibility of some of the words. All the results indicate that we need further improvement to maintain the naturalness and the intelligibility of the anonymized speech.